All right, folks, it's official. Checo Perez is not being dropped by Red Bull for the rest of the 2024 season, as we all thought might happen. It seems like despite a bunch of speculation by basically every Formula One pundit and YouTuber on the planet, he's going to be around for the long haul. And by long haul, I mean till the end of this year. It's unclear how this is going to shake out for Red Bull's future, though given the cash that his merch brings in, I can't say that I'm particularly surprised. Now, I gotta disclose some biases here. Around these parts, we love Mexican Minister of Defense, Checo Perez. The fact of the matter is, he's been a tremendously consistent driver across pretty much every team that he's ever been a part of, whether that started at Force India, his short stint at McLaren, or all the way up to his time at Racing Point with the Sakir Grand Prix, and then finishing off at Red Bull. We'll see. Now, despite being a general fan of him as a driver, I've got to be honest, there's absolutely no debate as of late. Checo has not been up to that second Red Bull seat, especially considering that it's basically been the best car on the grid for close to 2.5 years now. And the lack of performance is evident and very clear because he has a teammate that is one of the greatest we've ever seen. Now, Checo, unfortunately, because of that, is falling into a deep, deep shadow, which is seeming more and more difficult to climb out of. He hasn't been in contention for a podium or even the top 5 finish since the Chinese Grand Prix. And what makes it so surprising is that this is Red Bull, the same Red Bull we all know, the cutthroat, ruthless team that doesn't care about your feelings and only wants to put the best driver into that car. It was the same thing for Albon, it was the same thing for Gasly, it was the same thing for Kvyat. It's always been this way. So what makes Checo's situation different? I'm not sure, but I think I might have an idea as to why that is. But first, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. My name's Sam, and around these parts we talk about IndyCar, Formula One, life in general, and pretty much anything with 4 wheels that goes pretty fast. If you like those things, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below, and be sure to leave a like, because it's super helpful for the algorithm. So first, let's talk about Checo's massive international popularity. 65% of Red Bull's merch sales comes from Checo Perez merch, which is hilarious to think when your partner and teammate is the 3-time world champion Super Max Verstappen, who just destroys literally everyone, except for maybe this year. For example, I've been collecting vintage Formula One merch, and really pretty much any type of Formula One apparel for several years now. And so I try to keep up to date on whatever's going on in the market and see what drops are doing well and what chances I have of maybe snagging something cool. I've been looking for Checo merch for a very, very long time. And here's the thing that you wouldn't expect. Checo's merch has a very tough time depreciating. And that's because of his massive international popularity that most of us have a blind spot to. Specifically, the Red Bull Banco Norte Telcel hats. You see Checo wearing them, Max wearing them. Those things are always there, and I don't see a number 1 on there. I see 11 every single time. And as someone who grew up in San Diego, just 7 miles away from the international border, and then moving to New York City, there's not much Formula One merch that you see on average, but Checo's is the one that I see almost every day, which is hilarious to think, even as someone who collects this stuff. That's a big part of Red Bull's budgeting, and as we've learned, Red Bull has very vague ideas of what budgeting and how that should be taken care of. So let's move on to the real elephant in the room. What makes this particularly weird is that this is Red Bull we're talking about. The very same Red Bull that dropped Kvyat for Verstappen in 2016, Gasly for Albon in 2019, and Albon for Checo in 2021. Traditionally, Helmut, Marko, and Christian Final 76 Horner don't have any qualms about dropping a driver in favor of someone else who could be better in that car. It's not like they're lacking in second driver options, right? They have so many people that are all contending for that second Red Bull seat, even with Checo in place. We've heard rumblings about Daniel Ricciardo, we've heard rumblings about Liam Lawson, and unfortunately, I would say Yuki Tsunoda, but every indication does not give me the thought that he's going to be given the shot that I believe he deserves, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. And that doesn't even include the 9 other junior drivers in the Red Bull's Junior Academy. And all of them are gunning for a chance to be behind the wheel of F1's most dominant car. And the funny thing is, despite being spoiled for choice, which is something that very few racing teams across the planet and certainly in Formula One can say, it's very clear that this is a very different situation. Since Red Bull has decided to stay put with their current driver lineup, this makes it the second longest pairing in team history after Mark Webber and Seb's Vettel 2009-2013 run. And in that circumstance, both Seb and Mark were contenders for the World Championship, which led to the infamous Multi-21 incident that we still talk about to this day, and especially came back up when it came to Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris at the Hungarian Grand Prix. So if we're basing things purely off of precedent at Red Bull, none of this makes any sense. So now the question remains, folks. What is the real reason behind Red Bull being so hesitant to part ways with the Mexican Minister of Defense? The reality is this is Checo's second time being in this position since joining Red Bull. We had the same thing happen last year in 2023 when he had that drop off in form. And even that was a much better scenario than what we're seeing right now in the lead up to what is now the summer break. Even then, he found a way to snag a few podiums and top fives, so something has clearly swayed Helmut and File 76's perception of what Checo is able to provide to the team. I don't know what that is, but it seems like, for whatever reason behind the scenes, they have a perspective that we're not understanding.
All right, folks, one update from the edit desk, because as I was editing this video, a couple things came up that I think are worth mentioning. Now, I am not a fan of conspiracy theories or massive speculations, but I want you to remember the name Carlos Slim. Who is Carlos Slim? Well, he's the richest man in Mexico with a net worth of almost $90 billion and a massive telecommunications empire that dominates the Mexican and Latin American markets. He also owns Telcel and Telmex, two of Checo's longest running sponsors. So what I'm saying is Checo's biggest sponsor of his career is extremely dialed in to the Latin American TV and communications markets. Coincidentally, do you know who has a brand new Disney Plus series about his life that is slated for release in fall 2024, specifically for the Latin American streaming service markets? Introducing Checo Perez, No Te Rindas Cabrón, a docu-series about the life of Checo during the 2023 season. Assuming a lot of money was spent on the production, creation, filming, and editing process, do you think it would be in Disney Plus, Telcel, or Telmex's best interest to have a driver lose his seat just before the release of his docuseries? Absolutely not. And do you think that the richest man in Mexico, a personal friend of Checo, and the owner of one of the largest telecommunications conglomerates on the planet with a vested interest in his friend's success would have any issue pushing Liberty Media to step in on Checo's behalf? Again, absolutely not. And we haven't even gotten to the Mexican Grand Prix, which is a huge deal in the region for businesses and fans alike. So could it be possible that Disney Plus, Liberty Media, and one of the richest men on the planet could have pushed Horner and Marko to keep Checo around until at least the Mexican Grand Prix? Sounds pretty possible to me. Anyway, just had to include that as food for thought. Now we get back to the show.
But hey, those are just my thoughts, and I would love to hear what you're thinking. Do you think Checo has any type of long-term future in Formula One, or could we be seeing the end of the Mexican Minister's Defense time in Formula One? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and be sure to leave those down in the comments below. Definitely want to hear what you're thinking. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching. So glad to have you here, and stay tuned for more racing videos coming to you very soon. And remember, look up, keep going, and I'll be seeing you real soon. Have a good one, folks. Peace.